The day I got my pregnancy test report happened to be a particularly heavy typhoon day. In order to deliver something to my secretary, Ethan left me waiting in the storm for a full 5 hours. He also said he had a meeting at the company and would pick me up in 10 minutes, but by the time I was admitted to the hospital, he still hadn't shown up. During my hospitalization, I saw a message posted by my secretary in my circle of friends that he thought it was hard for me to go to work on a typhoon day. So he gave me a week's salary and forced me to rest at home. Later, Ethan was very angry when he found out that I was hospitalized. "You were hospitalized? Why did you make me make a trip to pick you up and take you home for nothing?" "Because I waited for you for half an hour in the pouring rain and couldn't get Sophia to the bidding place. And as a result, she lost the bid and cried for a long time." I calmly picked up the phone and dialed the driver who was involved in the accident that day. "My boss, you said you were going to make it up to me before. Are you still really going to take me to London?" On the day I was discharged from the hospital, I returned to Ethan's house out of breath. When I opened the door, Ethan was organizing a birthday party for Sophia. The living room was filled with beautiful bouquets of flowers flown in from all over the world. And the corners were practically piled high with all sorts of designer luxuries. Everything in front of me was so calm that my heart didn't flutter a bit. It wasn't until I saw the date of my birthday written on the banner that the pain in my heart stabbed like an arrow. 0728. That was the day the baby in my arms left. Ethan, Sophia's birthday coincided with a once-in-a-century super typhoon that closed the whole city. "How did you celebrate that day?" "At the villa," a friend inquired with a smile. Ethan raised his eyebrows and showed a bad smile. "That day it rained so hard that we couldn't get out of the house, and there was nothing else to do. So we had to." He paused for a moment and gave Sophia a mischievous look. "So he had to cook for her at home and feed her." Sophia blushed at this and flung herself into his arms, and everyone couldn't help but laugh. Everyone knew in their hearts what Ethan meant by that. Someone joked that it was exciting to be outside in the storm while you guys were enjoying yourselves at home. I stood in the doorway, unconsciously touching my empty stomach, my face pale as paper. The bag of pills in my hand dropped with a soft thud. Ethan was putting a birthday hat on a woman when his hand stopped, and he frowned when he saw me. He asks unhappily, "Olivia, have you been sick and hospitalized the past few days?" Oh, so he also knows I was hospitalized. For a whole week, the wind was thundering in the outside world, and he didn't give me a single call. On the 28th, while I lay on the operating table in despair, feeling the cold implements invade my body, he was in bed making out with his secretary. I wondered how Ethan would feel if he knew I'd been through all this in the meantime. "I was hospitalized because of our." Before I could finish, Ethan interrupted me. "If you were hospitalized, why did you need me to pick you up?" Ethan's tone was full of accusations. "Do you know that night I waited for you for half an hour in the rainstorm? Half an hour. I waited from daytime until dark, 5 whole hours, all in the storm. I was soaked to the skin, I had a cold and a fever, and the anticipation in my heart faded away, so I finally went home in the rain. As a result, I lost my first child." His friends have also expressed their dissatisfaction. "It is because you are too pretentious and have to ask Ethan to pick you up that he is delayed in sending Sophia to the bidding. The little girl is very strong-natured, and she couldn't eat or sleep after the project was screwed up, so you have to give Sophia an explanation. Let's put it this way." The leading man picked up the wine glass on the table. "As long as you finish this bottle of red wine, we will forgive you for Sophia." Several people slowly approached me and forced me to the wine table. Fingers clamped down hard on my chin, and the bottle of wine plunged directly into my mouth. The pungent flavor instantly filled my mouth. I wanted to struggle, but I was held down so hard that I couldn't move. "If you apologize, you'll be let off." They deliberately made me suffer, deliberately pushing the bottle deeper. I couldn't take it and desperately tried to spit it out. Who am I to apologize? My eyes were red and I confronted them. "You purposely messed up in order to compete with Sophia for the limelight, destroying all her efforts and hard work over the past 6 months, and you dare to say you're okay with it." Michael saw that I wasn't willing to compromise and was so angry in his heart that he directly gave me a slap on the face, making my face swell up. When Ethan saw this scene, he wanted to say something, but when he saw Sophia's sad eyes, he hesitated in his heart and finally shut his mouth tightly. He said in a cold tone, "Olivia, apologize. I just drank hard liquor, and now the small of my back feels like it hurts like a weight has been pressed down on it, and my brain buzzes like I've been slapped in the face. I knew that in the face of so many people, even if I was innocent and not at fault, as long as I didn't admit I was wrong. I wouldn't get any favors at all, and I didn't want to argue about right and wrong anymore. So I endured the discomfort in my heart and walked dizzily to Sophia. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have called Ethan at that time. I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. I mindlessly repeated the words until they were a little sweet in my throat. After apologizing, I crossed over to them with a blank face, intending to go upstairs and pack my bags, ready to leave the house. As I passed the group, my wrist was grabbed by one of the men who pulled me down to the ground with force. That's a pretty casual apology, like anyone owes you money. My still healing wounds were ripped open all of a sudden, and a sharp pain hit me as I felt blood flowing underneath me. Looking down, sure enough, the blood underneath me was already mostly stained red. Ethan froze at first at the sight of the blood, then frowned and tried to come over to see how hurt I was. Sophia stood up a step ahead of him and gently handed me a sanitary napkin. Sister-in-law, you're in your physical period, you need to take a good rest. Hearing the words physiological period, someone said in disbelief, it's disgusting? How dare you say such things in public? The worry on Ethan's face was replaced by disgust. His girlfriend had soiled the floor in front of everyone because of her physiological period, making it hard for him. A newcomer in the business world, to face it, Olivia? How can you disgrace yourself so much in front of so many people? Ethan is filled with disgust. I stood up numbly, ignoring the fact that my wounds kept bleeding, and walked towards my room with empty eyes. A sudden sound of vomiting came from behind me, breaking the original tranquility. Sophia suddenly squatted down and covered her mouth in pain, seemingly in distress. Sophia, what's wrong with you? Is it because you don't feel well? Someone hurriedly handed over a glass of water, and Ethan asked softly. Although Sophia's face was white from the nausea she had just experienced, a look of happiness and shyness spread across her face. She leaned into Ethan's arms and whispered, "It's okay. It's just that, I'm pregnant, and the smell of blood makes me a little nauseous." Pregnant, these two words were like a loud bang in my ears. I froze and couldn't help but touch my empty stomach. My mind went back to the cold iron jaws on the operating table and the little life that could never come back to life. Ethan locked eyes with me, a flash of panic in his eyes. "You wouldn't let me near you for the whole of last month," he explained. "I'm a man too. I can't repress this desire. I have to vent it somewhere." He put all the blame on me. In fact, I kept rejecting him last month because I found out I was pregnant and was worried about how it would affect the baby. So I wanted to wait for everything to stabilize before I told him. Originally, I wanted to surprise him, but it turned out like this. I looked at Ethan. The man in front of me made me feel strange, couldn't help but smile to myself. "You really make me feel revolted." Ethan got a little angry. "Who are you doing this to?" "I am rich and powerful. Raising a child does not affect me much. Besides, I just made a mistake that all men can make. My wife will always be you. Why keep dwelling on it?" "That's right, sister-in-law," one of Ethan's friends said with sarcasm. "You always take Ethan's girlfriend's position but do nothing. Do you know how many women are waiting outside?" Seeing Sophia still dry-heaving, in the next second, someone picked up a nearby bucket filled with ice and poured water on my head, without hesitation. "Let me help my sister-in-law clean up." The ice-cold water immediately poured over my entire body, and it felt like the blood was frozen thin and flowed down the floor in a light red color. I shrank my body and hugged myself tightly. My teeth kept chattering, and my wound hurt so much that I could barely feel it under the icy water. Everyone saw that Sophia's face was looking better and became more indulgent, suggesting that I be thrown into the pool. Despite all my resistance, I was grabbed by them, lost my balance, and thrown straight into the pool outside the villa. I didn't know how to swim and flailed about with my arms and legs, but the deeper I fell, the deeper I went. The water got into my mouth and nose, and I was about to lose my breath. Ethan stood on the shore with an indifferent expression, but I could tell she was a little anxious. "Olivia, I will save you if you will raise Sophia with me and treat him like your own." And I didn't respond. I preferred silence to whispering for any sympathy from him. "Olivia, do you really want to make a scene like this?" The voice in my ear felt like it was coming from far away, growing fainter and fainter. "Olivia, Olivia, Olivia?" Waking up again, I was lying in my familiar bedroom, my body feeling as if I had been stabbed with needles in pain. I tried to sit up, but realized I didn't even have the strength to lift my arms. The cold water in the pool and the wounds on my body were giving me a terrible fever. I took out my cell phone and leaned over to call my boss. Last time you said you'd take me to London. Does that still count? Of course. At that moment, the door opened, and Sophia came in with a bowl of porridge and a strange smile on her face. Sister Olivia, are you awake? She slowly sat down, her tone a little mischievous. Did you see that friend's circle on the day of the typhoon? You called Ethan more than 20 times, Tusk, all hung up by me. He thinks you're annoying. Get it? She came close to me, her eyes flashing with triumph. I know you're pregnant, and I also know that on my birthday, you lost the baby in your belly. Sophia wore an innocent smile, but what she said stung. But the child in your belly doesn't deserve to live in this world. He deserves to die. If she was just jealous of me, I wouldn't have cared. But she mentioned the child. These two words sounded like a knife, deeply stabbing my newly healed wounds. I broke down in my heart and shouted out in agitation, then raised my hand to hit. But I had just had a miscarriage and was weak, and Sophia easily dodged it. Hearing Ethan's footsteps outside the door, a hint of cunning flashed in Sophia's eyes. Then, she deliberately dropped the porridge bowl in her hand on the floor, the porcelain pieces splattering in all directions. She herself slammed down on her knees, and the sharp shards cut her knees, and blood flowed out. I'm sorry, Sister Olivia, it's all my fault. Sophia punched herself in the face as hard as she could while worshipping me. She couldn't stop the tears and pleaded, do whatever you want to do with me. Please don't hurt my baby. Her performance looked very real, as if she had suffered a lot. And that sad look reminded me of that day when she had a miscarriage. The scene really took me by surprise. I froze there, not understanding what was happening at first, when she grabbed my hand and leaned back so hard that her stomach hit the corner of the table hard. Sophia let out a scream of pain, and blood spread quickly on the floor, staining it red. Ethan happened to walk in the door and saw this scene, and anger immediately flared up in him. He ran over to me, pulled me off the bed, and slapped me in the face. Olivia? What's wrong with you? Sophia is still carrying my baby. How dare you push her? My cheeks are on fire, and I fall to the floor, blood coming out of the corner of my mouth. Sophia shrinks to the ground, crying weakly. Ethan, save the baby first. Sophia has miscarried. When Ethan came home in a huff, I was throwing the last thing in the house that belonged to me into the trash. I'd been with Ethan for 7 years, and in those 7 years, all I had was a tiny suitcase and a white porcelain vase containing ashes. Ethan heartbreakingly held Sophia in his arms, turned his head and looked at me angrily, and said, Olivia, how can you be so cruel? Not even care about the lives of small children. His friends looked at me, as if they were seeing an enemy. Ethan's face looks bad. I will give you one more chance to make it up to Sophia. Sophia is sick. Just take care of her. I know you are so jealous because you love me. If you still don't get it, that's the end of our relationship. I heard that he wants to break up with me. Sophia behind me gives me a smug smile, exactly like last night when she challenged me and set me up. Ethan looks a little impatient when he sees I'm not responding. He approaches me, leaning in close and lowering his voice so only I can hear. Olivia, listen to me. If you take care of Sophia, I'll cut her off. By then, we can have our own children too, can we? There seemed to be a hint of eagerness and anticipation in his words. What a pity, child, he and I won't have a child in this life. I carry my suitcase expressionlessly and walk through the crowd without looking back, leaving the place that almost got me into trouble. Olivia, if you dare to leave this house, I'll get engaged to Sophia right away. Behind me, Ethan continues to pressure me. I know you wanted to be with me in college. Now do you really want to watch me get engaged to someone else? Ethan said several good words in a row when he saw my back as I left in desperation. Immediately afterward, he dialed the media. The next day, Ethan rented the biggest old castle in North City. All the media in North City were invited to cover the event under the spotlight. Ethan and Sophia appeared together in front of everyone, and he even spent a lot of money on a precious blue diamond necklace for her. The feast was constantly shown on the big screen in North City, and even the people passing by couldn't help but stop and admire it. Sophia enjoyed the gazes of the crowd and snuggled happily in Ethan's arms. Ethan, the doctor said that my recovery is going well, and as long as we work hard, We'll be able to have another baby soon. Her nails gently scratched Ethan's chest, her slender white legs teasingly moving, but when she couldn't help but raise her head, what she saw was Ethan's cold eyes. At this time, Ethan's heart all the desire cannot be inspired. Because in his heart, there is only one idea before to him obedient Olivia, how will suddenly become now this way. In the past, every time Ethan made a scene, she was always the first to lower her head and comfort him with a soft tone. But now, she hadn't responded to his messages for days on end. Ethan pushed away Sophia's pestering and walked into the study by himself. He quickly called his subordinate, his face not looking too good, and asked, "The matter of the courtship banquet has become so big that every big screen in North City is broadcasting it. Olivia should have seen it as well, right?" The subordinate nervously wiped the sweat on his forehead and stammered, "Mtks Olivia. She left the country the day after she left Ethan's house." The subordinate's voice gets smaller and smaller. "So she probably didn't see your engagement party." Ethan's eyes shrunk for a moment, and his face became very bad, like it was about to rain. Seeing that his boss was about to get angry, the subordinate hurriedly said, however, "Mtks Olivia left a gift for you before she left." A gift? Ethan's gently furrowed brows relaxed slightly. As expected, she still can't let go of me, trying to find ways to make excuses for herself. HMPH? Does she think that giving me a gift will make me change my mind? What kind of gift is it anyway? A white porcelain vase. The location of the white vase confused Ethan. The hospital? How could Olivia have placed a gift in a hospital? Ethan picks up his cell phone and sends Olivia a message. "Olivia, do you think I'm going to forgive you for sending a porcelain vase? Did you leave it in the hospital to remind Sophia how her baby was victimized by you? I suggest you come back soon and apologize to Sophia properly. I was so indulgent with you in the past that I let you think you were so great. Olivia, you need to stop pretending you don't know." There was no response to the words sent. Ethan is a little flustered inside. As he passed through the living room, Sophia smiled and walked over to him. Soft catkin grabbed his arm. Sophia said with some dissatisfaction, "Ethan, where are you planning to go so late at night?" Seeing Sophia, Ethan frowned. "Sophia, didn't I tell you to go to the hospital and get some rest? Why are you still here?" Sophia's face changed a bit. A hint of hurt showed in her eyes. "We are engaged. Isn't it normal for me to stay here?" Ethan took out a contract from the drawer and handed it to her. He gently reminded Sophia, "Olivia is my wife. You have to remember that we are just acting. As long as you cooperate with me through this engagement process together, I will give you a necklace worth $10 million. This is signed by yourself." The contract paper drifted down like snowflakes, and Sophia's expression gradually became complicated. She bit her lip, resentment in her heart, but she didn't dare to continue arguing. The corridor of the hospital was as cold as a refrigerator. Ethan held the white porcelain vial handed by his subordinate, his fingers trembling slightly. The porcelain vase was very simple and clean-looking. It was a little cold to the touch, and there was something about it that made people feel uneasy. He tried to restrain his inner worry and said with a smile, "Olivia, your eyes are still as bad as ever, but it doesn't matter as long as it's from you. I like it." After saying that, he carefully opened the cap of the bottle, expecting that there would be some kind of surprise inside. However, when the bottle cap was opened, what met his eyes was a pile of grayish-white powder. Ethan froze. Was this ashes? He was so shocked that the vase fell out of his hand, spilling ashes all over the floor. Just in time, that's when Olivia's attending doctor arrived. He had come to hold the child's ashes as per Olivia's request and had brought a pregnancy test report for Ethan. "Are you Mtks Olivia's husband?" Seeing Ethan nod his head, the doctor frowned and said, "You're really incompetent as a husband, actually letting the young lady come alone for the surgery." Surgery? Ethan was so shocked by the news that he could barely stand up and accidentally bumped into the instrument rack behind him as he backed up. "What miscarriage?" The doctor sighed and handed me a pregnancy test report. "Miss Olivia got pregnant 2 months ago. She originally wanted to surprise you and was going to wait until your birthday to tell you. But on July 28th, due to a typhoon, she got wet for a long time and slipped and fell, so she couldn't keep the baby. Before the operation, Mtks Olivia cried on the phone for a long time. She said how she couldn't reach you, so she went to the operation table alone. She was still calling out your name until just before she lost consciousness. Every word the doctor said was like a knife, piercing Ethan's heart deeply. July 28th, a date he remembers very clearly. It was pouring rain that day, and he was with Sophia, emotionally close. It was then that he realized his phone was ringing and knew it was Olivia calling him. But he had other emotions on his mind and had to deal with them. So he hung up the 20 or so missed calls annoyingly. All the while she waited for him, alone in the rainstorm, until collapsing, losing the baby, on a cold operating table. It was all over. No, it couldn't be. Ethan sat down, his hands trembling as he grabbed the ashes on the floor, trying to gather the handful of ash together, only to have it slip helplessly through his fingers. His eyes turned red, and he couldn't stop the tears from falling. He remembered Olivia standing in the doorway of the villa, pale, trying to tell him about the miscarriage of his child, only to be rudely interrupted. He remembered the shocking blood underneath her, and his own disgusted comment about how humiliating it was for her. He also remembers being at the pool, and her being pushed off the pool by a concerted effort. He had even forced her to accept Sophia's child. The truth was like a sharp knife, shattering Ethan's pretense completely. Ethan returned home, disoriented and clutching the urn, and went straight into his and Olivia's bedroom. He missed Olivia so much that he even wished he could hide in her closet right away and enjoy that scent that belonged to her. But the moment the door to the room opened, his heart went cold inside. It was surprisingly empty. Where did the stuff go? Where did her stuff go? Ethan looked at the room, which looked like it had been ransacked, and hurriedly opened the closet and shoe cupboards, as well as those jewelry boxes. Olivia's clothes were all gone. And even her personal belongings were gone. She was just having a little trouble with herself. How could she have moved out? There were no lights on in the villa. It seemed empty, like a black hole that swallowed the soul. In contrast to this is the screen across the room, on which loops of colorful light and shadow are playing. It is his and Sophia's engagement video. 3 days later, Ethan received a package from me. Before I left, I purposely pulled up the security camera footage. The time went back to a few days ago, the day Sophia had her miscarriage. From that day on, Olivia started to unpack and slowly cleaned up all the traces she left behind at Ethan's house. The scene of Sophia's miscarriage surfaces before time goes back. He goes through it frame by frame and finally finds the truth in a hidden camera in the corner of the bedroom. He suppresses his inner shock and plays back the security footage of that night frame by frame. He heard Sophia purposely mentioning the aborted child to irritate Olivia. She insulted that her and Olivia's child was a bastard and didn't deserve to live in this world, and said that the child deserved to die. Seeing Olivia struggling helplessly and in pain, Sophia slaps her. Then, before he arrives, he deliberately breaks the porridge bowl and cuts his knee. Then, holding Olivia's hand tightly, she pretends to be pushed and falls off with her stomach against the corner of the table. Playing the perfect victim scene, Ethan's heart instantly went cold. It felt like there were razor blades all over his body, blood flowing against the grain. He was in so much pain that he could hardly breathe. Because he hadn't rested or eaten for a few days, he had just stood up when he felt the sky spinning, and his whole body plunged into darkness. When he opened his eyes again, Ethan found himself in the hospital. Next to him stood the subordinate who had just finished checking Sophia's medical records, handing Ethan the materials for his investigation. Ever since Olivia left, Ethan's face has been devoid of any expression. He looks through Sophia's medical records and realizes that her pregnancy was actually a falsified report in collusion with her private doctor. The so-called miscarriage was nothing more than a blood packet and medication that she had prepared in advance. These things didn't affect Ethan at all. But he remembered Olivia because of this woman, Sophia. His mind involuntarily recalled the scene where he and a group of people bullied Olivia, and his heart violently tightened, feeling a stabbing pain. At that moment, all he felt in his heart was hating himself for not being able to get it over with. Sophia stood in front of the hospital and straightened her carefully groomed hair. A smug smile appeared at the corner of her mouth. Although Ethan had been very cold to her that day, she didn't believe that Ethan would really be desperate for her. After all, on her birthday, Ethan had even made Olivia fall in a storm and miscarry so that he could be intimate with her. After all, he'd been in a 7-year relationship with Olivia, and it was only natural for him to forget about Olivia. But so what? Sophia followed Olivia's gentle example and changed into the long plain dress she usually liked to wear. Then she took a deep breath and knocked on the door of the hospital room. Ethan, are you there? On the hospital bed. Ethan was unconscious due to high fever. In a daze, he opened his eyes, and although his vision was blurred, he seemed to see Olivia standing in the doorway. The familiar figure and gentle voice sent a jolt through him. Not caring about the Roman 4 needle in his hand, he staggered out of bed and lunged at Sophia, holding her tightly in his arms. The force was so great that he seemed to want to incorporate her into his life. Baby, you're finally back to see me. Ethan's voice was a little choked, his forehead warm against her shoulder. It's my fault for losing the baby. Can you forgive me? We can still have a child. I know I was wrong. I really love you. A small smile of satisfaction appeared at the corner of Sophia's mouth. At this moment, she was very glad that her decision to pretend to be pregnant that day had not only succeeded in putting Olivia in a difficult situation, but also made the man in front of her love her even more. She gently comforted Ethan. Ethan, take it easy, The words were not finished when Ethan suddenly froze. The scent filling his nose wasn't quite right. He was thinking of a light gardenia scent, not this pungent designer perfume. He suddenly pushed the person in his arms away and took a closer look, realizing that the person he was hugging was Sophia. Ethan's eyes instantly turned cold and even revealed a deep hatred. It's you? He clenched his teeth. His voice was so low that it sent shivers down one's spine. Sophia's heart tightened. Ethan, you, before she could finish her words. Ethan suddenly reached out his hand and firmly clamped her chin like an iron vice, forcing her to look up at him. The sharp pain caused Sophia to stifle a muffled grunt, and she asked in a panic, Ethan, you? What's wrong with you? She carefully mimics Olivia's makeup, which now looks like it's gone pear-shaped. However, the more this heartbreaking-looking face resembles Olivia, the more Ethan's heart fires up. Whenever he saw this woman's face, he remembered Olivia's desperate wait in the pouring rain, the ashes in the white porcelain vase, and the desperate look in her eyes when she was beaten by himself. Anger and regret churned in his heart like a volcano, causing him immense pain. He really wanted to hate this face. How dare you continue to pretend? I'm sorry, but I can't fulfill this request. It's really heartbreaking that you've injured my child. How dare you imitate her to annoy me? Sophia chokes on the water and coughs. Just like you. I'm afraid she'll steal you away. Stop it. Ethan angrily pushes her away with a threat in his eyes. He violently breaks the glass bottle on the table, then picks up a sharp shard and slowly walks over to her. Sophia steps back in fear and accidentally knocks over a row of crystal ornaments. The shard cuts her leg and blood immediately flows out. She cries out, Ethan, please spare me, I will kneel. She suddenly falls to her knees, her forehead touches the floor, tears and blood mingle down her face. I was wrong, I'll never dare again. Ethan leans down and grabs her chin, making her look directly at his anger. Sophia, don't you like to pretend to be pathetic? You like kneeling on glass, I'm satisfying you now. Why don't you want to instead? You knew Olivia was pregnant and had a miscarriage, and you made me fool around with you in bed that day. She waited for me for 5 hours in a rainstorm, and you made me ruin her chances with my own hands. Sophia laughs and says, Ethan, didn't I do all those things with your permission? You're pretending to be so affectionate now, but we're really the same person. Don't talk. His voice trembled a little, tears streamed down his face, and his heart was filled with deep remorse. You don't deserve to be in this world, and neither do I. He raised the shard of glass, and Sophia shrieked in terror and hastily clasped her head, shrinking into a ball of despair. Just at the moment when the shard was about to fall, the assistant suddenly pushed the door and burst in. Ethan, we found out where Miss Olivia was. 6 months later, I was standing in front of a gallery window in London. The sun shone on the canvas, reflecting the horizon after a storm. It was my first work to be exhibited. It depicts me 7 years ago, when I struggled in the darkness but eventually found the light. The fragrance of gardenia gently drifted away, and I don't know when Liam stood beside me. He was lowering his head to help me adjust the frame, and his warm fingertips gently touched my wrist. He looked up and smiled. Olivia, this painting is going to get a lot of attention tonight. I smiled at him and felt an unprecedented sense of solidity and calmness inside. 7 years of hurt had finally healed under the London sun. Liam is my boss, and he personally took me to the hospital after he was injured in the storm 6 months ago. On that day, he felt guilty when he learned of my miscarriage. I realized it wasn't his fault. My miscarriage was due to the fact that I was out in the rain for 5 hours, and then I got scared in the car and accidentally fell. But he still felt guilty. So Liam offered to take me to London to further my education as a way of making it up to me. I agreed with him and was completely free of all traces of being in Ethan's life. Liam was not as sweet-talking as Ethan, but his actions brought me out of my loneliness. During the period of preparation for the exhibition, he stayed up late with me to revise the drafts, helped me choose the frames, and was even willing to queue up for an hour just to buy a bouquet of gardenias for me on the streets of London. I used to think that Ethan had become my past. Until one day, the door of the gallery was pushed open, and the figure that was both familiar and a little strange walked in, breaking the peace. Olivia. Ethan's voice was a little trembling, full of surprise. The atmosphere in the gallery became instantly quiet and everyone turned to look. I froze for a moment, feeling a little tingle in my heart as I turned to see him. I used to look forward to seeing his face, even fantasized about spending the rest of my life with him. But now, all that was left was a feeling of disgust. He looked tired and his eyes were bloodshot. Clutched tightly in his hand was a yellowed photo of us together the year we graduated from college. Liam frowned and stood in front of me, saying in a stern tone, "Mr. Ethan, you are not welcome here." Ethan, however, didn't listen to me and walked towards me with red eyes. His voice was a little trembling. "Olivia, I know the truth of the matter. I was wrong. Please come back, okay?" This was the first time he shed tears in front of me, showing his vulnerability, but I really just felt so uncomfortable. He's still so self-righteous, thinking that a few tears will make me forget all those hurts. "Come back," I sneered and looked him in the eye, my tone firm. "Ethan, you made me wait for you for 5 hours in a storm. You made me almost drown in the pool after my miscarriage. You even slapped me and called me a disgrace after all you did to me. What makes you think that? I will come back." Ethan froze and suddenly fell to his knees. His forehead hit the ground, his voice was hoarse and pained. "Olivia, I love you. I was really wrong. I'm willing to spend my whole life to make it up to you." I pushed him away with force, contempt in my eyes. "A lifetime? Forget it. I've only been with you for 7 years and it turned out like this. It's just not worth it. This is my bad fate. I may not be able to accompany you for the rest of your life." Liam replied very politely, "Mr. Ethan, Olivia and I are preparing for a painting exhibition and planning for the future. Did you come here to give us your blessing?" I held Liam's arm intimately and said happily, "Yes, Liam and I are getting engaged next month." Ethan looked like he was struck by lightning, staring up at the ring on my ring finger, a flash of madness in his eyes. "Olivia, didn't you say you would only marry me in this life?" He stood up violently and grabbed my wrist, trying to rip that ring off. "Yeah, I said something stupid like I would only marry him in this life before, but I waited for him for 7 years, and he didn't give me any promises. And I've only been with Liam for 6 months. And Liam's willing to trust me with his entire fortune and prepare a big proposal for me." Liam waved his hand, and several gallery security guards immediately stepped forward and quickly grabbed Ethan. I turned around, closed my eyes, and took a deep breath. Liam's palm gradually calmed the pain in my chest. The exhibition was a great success. My canvases were highly praised by the Times, and many orders came in. However, Ethan still wouldn't let me go. The day after the exhibition, all kinds of packages piled up in front of the gallery. There were limited edition frames of jewelry worth $10 million, and several handwritten letters of apology, all signed by Ethan. I asked my assistant to return all these things, but Ethan's persistence really exceeded my expectations. On the third day, a large advertising screen across the street from the gallery began to play a video of his confession, which looped over and over again. The video quickly went viral on the streets of London, with some people moved by his deep emotion and others laughing at his self-importance. I stood in front of the gallery window and watched Ethan on the screen with nothing but a sense of disgust. St. Paul's Cathedral was brightly lit, and it was here that my wedding took place. Liam, dressed in a dark blue suit, held my hand and led me down the aisle covered in gardenias. The applause of the guests around me came like a tidal wave, and my white gown sparkled under the crystal lights. The diamond ring on my ring finger, symbolizing true love and freedom, shone brightly. Liam raised his glass and said to me in English, "I would like to be the color that never fades from your canvas and spend the rest of my life guarding your every ray of light." The wedding was at its most exciting moment when the door to the church was suddenly thrown open, and Ethan came running in a state of disarray. In his hand, he held the porcelain vase that had been broken long ago, but which he had carefully mended. His voice was hoarse and pained. "Olivia, we're the family, Olivia. Do you really not want me and the baby anymore?" The guests in the room were surprised, and the reporters' flashbulbs kept flashing like a rainstorm. Liam frowned and stood in front of me, and security quickly came over. Ethan, however, struggled desperately like a madman and rushed to me saying, "I've sent Sophia to jail. I'm broke and have nothing now. Only you can help me." I smiled coldly and distanced myself from him. "Your love is as light as grass and makes you feel worthless. I loved you for 7 years, only to get betrayal and hurt. Now, I have Liam, a painting exhibition, and a future. In my opinion, you are even worse than a beggar on the side of the road." Ethan froze, tears streaming down with remorse, a low sobbing sound in his throat. "But I love you? I really love you?" Ethan's breakdown made headlines in London tomorrow. His end, I also learned from the London papers. Because Ethan had not been managing the company, it had long since been controlled by someone else, and he himself had been saddled with huge debts as a result. He was forced to leave the country and return to North City, completely becoming the object of ridicule. On the contrary, I didn't care at all when I heard what happened to him. His remorse was actually a result of his own making. After the engagement party, Liam and I flew to Paris. On the opening day, my painting was collected by a famous gallery. The painting was of a butterfly that had broken out of its cocoon and was flying into the endless starry sky. Liam stood beside me, holding my hand tightly. "Olivia, you did it." I smiled and leaned on his shoulder. "Because of you, I can chase my dream without any worries." The starry night sky of Paris twinkled. I realized that these 7 years of hurt had been transformed into my strength, enabling me to fly into the future that belonged to me.